And a welcome to our live audience for Digital Health InvestorTalk. I'm your host, Stephen Wardell. I'm the managing partner of Wardell Advisors, a digital health advisory firm, and the author of The Future of Digital Health. Wardell Advisors is helping digital health companies address issues around growth, fundraising, trade sales, and strategic alternatives, giving you more options in today's challenging environment. You can follow me at x.com/Steve Wardell. Our show today is on the topic of live long enough to live forever with our guest, Gil Blander. Gil is the founder and CSO of InsideTracker, a health and health span optimization company. He's internationally recognized for his research in the basic biology of aging and translating research discoveries into new ways of detecting and preventing age-related conditions. You can follow him at x.com/gblander1. This show is being recorded and will be included in my podcast series called Digital Health Investor Talk. Subscribe to our podcast on Apple and Spotify, and please leave us a review. We love getting reviews and read all of them. We have a new podcast link and page for the show, so make sure you see recent episodes when you subscribe to the podcast, or else you might actually subscribe to the old page, the old show. Today's content is not investment advice, as we are not investment advisors. Here's the format of the show. It's 9 minutes long. It's recorded live in front of an audience, and Gil and I will spend the first half discussing the news and macro picture and some other topics, and then we'll focus on our special topic of the day. And we'll be taking questions from our live audience throughout. So, Gil, welcome to the show, and please introduce yourself.
Thank you so much, Steve, for inviting me. So I'm a scientist. I define myself as a scientist. I was born and raised in Israel, so you can hear my accent, I assume. And from a very young age, I was fascinated by the aging problem. I wanted to live forever. I wanted to stop the clock. I wanted to understand why do we have aging-related diseases. And that's why I decided to study biology. And I basically finished my doctoral study at the Weizmann Institute of Science, studying cancer and aging. Moved here to Boston to MIT and spent 5 years at one of the best labs that studied aging in the world. And then at that time, I realized that I might contribute more to humanity if I would start one company. So I started to look for an idea, and during that time, I decided to leave MIT and join a system biology, computational biology company, and I spent a couple of years there. And during that time, I came with the idea of InsideTracker, and the idea is how can we help a human live better longer based on what's happening inside the body. So we develop a very interesting computational biology digital health solution that allow people to find what food to eat, what supplement to take, what exercise to do, what lifestyle changes to perform based on what's happening inside the body. And I'm sure that we'll discuss it later.
Great, thank you. Very, very interesting. So now we'll move on to our first topic of the day, which is macro news. Things like index levels, inflation, interest rates, job unemployment. So not a lot of news this week. We seem to be kind of coasting a bit. What news there was, I think, was that Jerome Powell, the Fed chairman, he said that a rate cut by September is on the table, meaning that we could have a rate cut in September. Everyone assumes that means 25 basis point rate cut on the current rate, which is a little over 5%. And that's not a huge amount, but directionally will be very significant in the first rate cut in 2 years since the Fed began rapidly raising rates in response to a great concern over inflation at that time just continued. So I think the market would be very, very upset over any rate increase. The market is comfortable with rates being flat, and the market is excited about a possibility of a small rate cut in September. Not guaranteed. And Powell also telegrams in advance what he and the Fed are thinking. They don't like surprises either way. So the Nasdaq rallying 3% today on this news. So a number of big tech companies stumbled last week, and the Nasdaq fell 3%. And this news from Powell is enough to erase that loss and set us back up again. So I think Yeah, I think that most people on Wall Street are assuming that there's going to be no change in rates flat through December, and then a small chance of one rate cut by the end of the year. And this may get people optimistic. Maybe a rate cut in September, maybe another one by the end of the year, so possibly two rate cuts. We'll see. Um, and Powell, I think he's not contradicting what he has said in the past, I think, which is that out of concern about inflation, rates need to be higher longer. So I think we're still in a world where rates are 5% for nearly 5%, the risk-free rate, the federal funds rate. And we're still in a world where inflation is a concern. And historically, the Fed has targeted 2%, and it's trying to get us back down to 2%. And I've heard that the Fed may set a higher long-term number, so we could see something a little bit above 2%, not much above 2%, as the rate that the Fed targets. Big picture, this overall, in the innovation economy, we really want lower inflation and low interest rates, because that means that people have to put money into innovation and growth, and in order to throw that money, they can't just stick it in a corporate bond at 10% or something. Overall, this is good. This is you're on track. Where the worst possibilities of high interest rates, high inflation seem to be getting less likely. Seem to be on track to something slightly more positive environments and good signals to the economy. So, Gil, any thoughts on overall macro news or the Powell story?
Yeah, I think that it will be very beneficial for digital health and biotech and high-tech company that, especially startup, when the interest rate will be much lower. Higher interest rate make you harder to raise money, and then in that case, it's harder to hire more employees, and also it's harder for the consumer to buy your product. So any decrease in interest rate will be very welcome for anyone in the innovation economy.
That's right. So now moving on to the next industry reports. So this is reports on digital health in general, or some part of healthcare, or your specialty in healthcare. I was pleased to see that a report came out of Digital Health New York. It's a nonprofit in New York. The Digital Health Innovation Report for the second half of 2024 came out this past week. So this covers digital health. It also covers other health innovation. It covers biotech, for example. And it gets said that Q2 funding for the quarter that just ended was double compared to the same period last year. And they cited certain deals, a lot of New York area. This covers New York region, not national. And New York has been hopping. I visited New York and talked to investors in New York, and New York was hopping 3 months ago. And this reflects that. And they cited that the reason, examples of why funding's up so much in New York, including the Sword Health fundraise for $130 million. In the second quarter. So, that's right. It's we've seen since, if you go back to January, at JP Morgan in January, I think pretty much everyone I was talking to at the time said that the fundraising environment was low and terrible, and it would remain flat and low and terrible through December. And I began to see what I'll call green shoots, so some nice signals a few months after that. And so my public view is that the environment by the end of this year will be 25% better than by the start of this year. I said it'd be more better by the start of this year than it was at the start of this year. And you could measure that by number of seed AD deals in digital health, for example, it'd be up. So that's an optimistic view at the time. And now this is really the first report. This is a Watt Health report, which was national, a little less positive. It was positive, not as positive as this. And now we have the New York report saying funding in New York has doubled compared to the last year. So this is great news. This means that the funding environment is getting better. It means companies that were holding back, or belt tightening and holding back, they can now go out for their fundraise because, and this is going to have a contagion effect as well, I think. So VCs have raised funds, they have dry powder, they've not been investing those funds. But they have to put it to work at a certain time frame, a 7-year time frame or a 5-year time frame. And so that means that if they didn't invest for 2 years, they have to invest at a faster rate in the future. And if they see their peers doing it, then they're likely to start investing themselves, feel like the uncertainty has been contained, and they can invest again. So this is a great sign. This report, it's worth checking out, especially if you're from the greater New York City area. This report, New York Healthcare Innovation Report for the first half of 2024. Aaron, did any reports come out in the last couple weeks that you thought were important for our audience that you want to draw attention to?
Not reports, but I think that something that show that the direction that you are discussing is really happening. You can see some companies started to raise money and raise real amount of money. A good example is Flow Health, that basically it's an app that measure the period of women. It's basically women health app. I think that it's the second most downloaded health and wellness app in the world. And they raise a real amount, 200 million for fertility tracking. The valuation was, if I recall correctly, around $3 billion. So it's very interesting that women health starting to pick up, and I think that there is a lot of, I would call it a served audience of women that haven't received the right treatment as men's, and it's starting to be happening. So I think that it's again an interesting sign, similar to Steve, what you mentioned in the report. And there are also some interesting news about Samsung Health. Specifically, I don't know if you guys follow Samsung, but they came with, they have like a fitness tracker, and very recently they came with Oura Ring, like a fitness tracker, and they're trying to compete with Oura Ring, if you heard about Oura Ring. And they're also starting to get closer to specific companies, and having a specific application that's specific only for the Samsung Health app. For example, just yesterday, Zumba Fitness partner with Samsung Health, and they provide a specific content specifically only for Samsung Health. So again, I think that there are some interesting movement from I will call the big gorillas like Samsung, that starting to understand that the health and the digital health and maybe the wellness is very important, and it's a place that they should invest more on. And specifically on Samsung, I heard a lot of interesting plan for them to get even deeper into digital health and health. So anyone that is interested, or any founder or executive in a company, I think that it's maybe might be a good time to approach Samsung and try to see if they can work with you.
That's great. That's really interesting. And so I'm really intrigued by Flow Health raising 200 million. I'm looking at the website for Flow Health right now, and it looks like it is a consumer play. It's not selling to employers, not selling to providers. And so sometimes consumer health companies find it tough to raise money. But here's an example of great success here. And they've had trouble raising money because there's a rich environment for funding healthcare, and they go to that environment, and those VCs say that's not really healthcare, because you're not reimbursed, you're not guided by a physician. That's not really healthcare. And then they would go to the consumer sector, and the consumer sector doesn't understand health. And so they say, well, who's the investor community for me? Now, there's a smaller community that likes consumer health, some early stage venture funds, etc., that like fitness and consumer health. But it's not as well developed as consumer tech and digital health. And so here's a company, and just looking at their website, it looks like it has a significant healthcare component to it. And so I'd be curious to see who the investors are. Are they healthcare investors? Or really consumer investors? And did healthcare investors manage to grab this opportunity? So very interesting. And I'll go on some other news and trade journal news and business news. But first, did you have any thoughts? Like, what is the biggest story in healthcare this week? Well, I'll go first. I didn't see one this week. I think last week it was that hack that happened, or the downtime of healthcare computers with hospitals losing their computers, and people walk around with paper forms, which is terrible. And I didn't see a story this week. So, Gil, any thoughts on what the biggest story in healthcare is this week?
No, I haven't. I agree with you. I haven't seen a story. I think that there are still ripple effects from the story last week. So I think that still you can see. I can give you an example. I'm a member at Lifetime Fitness, and I still see some of the screen are still blank, and they are saying rebooting, and that's like a week after. So I think that this hack is not a joke. And I read today that Delta Airlines estimate that the cost for them was at least $500 million just from this hack. So I think that's it's a very big story, even so that it's last week, and it shows how dangerous it is for the industry to have only one provider, let's say, or almost only one provider that cover all the industry, because then you can have something like that. But if we had more providers, so the industry will have a few more alternatives, and it will be a bit safer. So that's why it's good that the regulators always make sure that at least there are two different companies that serve a specific domain, and not only one, because when you have one, it's you have a risk to have more and more of those events.
I heard an interesting kind of defense, you could say, for this, which is, let's say that you work for a corporation, you ask for a certain IT setup, and the IT setup is at the office, you have a tower PC, and it has a line connection to the office network, but no Wi-Fi on the tower PC. Wi-Fi is turned off, and you run maybe Windows on it with maybe Windows Defender antivirus. But then from the same employer, you have a second PC. Your backup is to have a second PC. Your backup is not to back up your PC. Your backup is to have a second PC. And this is your laptop, and it has a different operating system, so maybe Mac operating system, and it has a different antivirus, so maybe Mortley antivirus. And it does have a Wi-Fi connection, because laptops usually do. And then if one of them is hacked, then you, instead of fixing the first, which you might get anyway, you simply open the second. So, 15 years ago, it was common to have a tower desktop at work, and that some people had a laptop they occasionally took with them places. But they have standardized that it's just one laptop. Your one laptop is in the office, to your briefcase, so you take it home. But in the future, you may need two PCs, so that your backup is to open the second PC. It's not effective. Okay, we have a question for you. So we mentioned you're the founder and chief scientific officer of InsideTracker, right? So Nilesh in the audience has asked, how do you expect to compete against increasingly effective AI algorithms applied to healthcare, and how they impact patient care, from the provider's care effectiveness and patient self-understanding? So I think this might be that something that InsideTracker offers could now be done nearly free by a primary care physician, with and so interacting with their patient health record and an AI agent that they have anyway. Any thoughts about that?
Yeah, of course. So we are talking now about LLM and foundation models and model on top of foundation models. So I think that the key here is basically the data that you're using in order to develop the models. And especially in our domain, in the domain of wellness and the domain of what is a good for intervention for you to take in order to improve, let's say, a specific blood biomarker or a specific condition. There is a lot of confusion. There are a lot of gurus that basically saying things that are not scientific. And when you have it on the internet, nobody can know. The LLM don't know what is valid and what is not valid. So you have a lot of, let's say, dirtiness in the data. We have a very clean data sets that include millions of data points or maybe billions of data points that we can mine using the LLM on our platform and provide to the user a recommendation that are clean because our team review the data and basically make sure that the data is scientific and back on peer-reviewed scientific publication. So I think that the key today is basically the data that you build your model on, and using the data from the web for developing models for health or for wellness is very challenging and very risky. And I think that it's actually make our data and our platform even more important because instead of receiving some hallucination, I assume that you heard this term from the LLM, that is telling you something in a very confident way, but actually it's wrong. Nobody, unless you are an expert in the field. I once asked the LLM about my publication, and I looked at it and found a lot of publications that I never published. And that's a pretty simple question because you can see if my name is there or not. So I think that it's very risky to come to Dr. Google or Dr. ChatGPT and ask question about that because it's very dirty outside. And I think that there is a lot of value in our data and the fact that we have more than a decade of data that is well curated with hundreds of thousands of users and data points that we can actually provide the clean and clear and very scientific recommendations.
Yeah, thank you. The remark I've heard about that is, so first, I think savvy investors are saying, I'm going to look at using generative AI or some version of it in healthcare, first in an administrative and billing and workflow perspective, and only later in a diagnostic or therapeutic way, because I have to be careful. And the more I've heard about that is that using generative AI for diagnosis, it can't explain its weights, and it makes things up. But other than that, though, it's great. To diagnosis.
So another comment about that. LLM is basically large language model. So the high benefit for that is basically taking a lot of language or a lot of text and make a sense from that. So it's very good for writing. So for someone like me that is not a native English speaker, it's great. I can write now an article or a blog in an hour. I just worked on a grant application in the last months, and it speed up the way because you write your bullet points and then it's allow you to expand it and make it nice and simple reading. But you need to be careful not to ask him to write something and extract from the web, because then it will find a lot of wrong point of information and include it into that. So there are a lot of advantages. There are a lot of disadvantages. And what is important for the executive or the scientist or the data scientist or the developers that using it is to know where, when to use it and where to use it and when not to use it and where not to use it. So I think that's a very important for us to understand the benefit and disadvantages of the LLM.
Yeah, very interesting. So if you cast an LLM, who was Jack the Ripper in London in the 1800s? The LLM will tell you what is said on the internet in the encyclopedia, but it's not going to solve the crime for you. And Elon Musk had this interesting statement of what he wants AI to be. And it was that if you lived in the time of Copernicus, as Copernicus said, the Earth rotates around the sun, and he was tried and put in prison for making that claim because he contradicted all of the written materials and all of the time. But he said that because he was looking at solar observations and said, based on these observations of celestial bodies and the sun, I believe that the Earth rotates around the sun, not the other way around. And so Elon Musk's, we've all heard of what is the term for a machine passing as human? There's a term for Turing test. Was if a machine can pass as a human, then it's passed the Turing test. The Musk test is that the AI, if you ask the AI something, it will, there's those principles to give you an answer that is the truth. It will not just reflect what is in society. It won't tell you that the sun revolves around the Earth because all of the printed materials tell you that the sun revolves around the Earth. It will tell you the Earth revolves around the sun because it knows how to interpret the celestial movements. So that's interesting. I don't think that, so people say that AI passes the Turing test. I don't think that AI passes the Musk test yet.
And Steve, another point, if we're talking about Elon Musk, is that Elon Musk is saying in the last 20 years that in a year or 2 or 5, a self-driving car will be better than us. And we are already in 2024 and it's not. And even in the last week, if you ask me about news, he claimed that the last version of the self-driving car in Tesla is very good. And a few analysts tried it and they said that it's pretty bad. So I think that the same with LLM, be realistic about expectation. And I don't think that in a year LLM will be better than a platform that will be like InsideTracker and other. It might be, but the job for me and the executive in companies like InsideTracker is to try to know how to use LLM in order to maintain our unfair advantage of what we have done before. So that's basically the challenge of the executive. Keep your unfair advantage based on what you have and use the new technology that is available today.
I think that's very well put. That's very well. So now I'm going to mention a couple other stories about trade journal news, fundraisers. For our audience, if you saw anything in the press you want us to comment on, feel free to put that in the chat. So the story of trade journal news this week is the story of more big fundraisers. This is a surprise. We did not expect this 3 months ago. And so we have New York-based Spring Health, which is a mental health and femtech company, AI-enabled, also now engagement services. It raised $100 million Series E funding, putting its valuation at $3.3 billion. So there's a number of digital health unicorns out there. Someone commented this has got to be one of the highest valuation digital health unicorns. So that's great to see that. The founder and CEO here is Gil Blander. York-based investors include RRE and Kinetic. Those are strong mainstream digital health investors. Customers include Target, Microsoft, Delta. Sounds like this is the employer-based digital health company. Employer-centric sales. That's great. So I think this is consistent with a number of things. First of all, mental health care is a very hot sector. There's a lot of demand for this. Second of all, it's showing success of digital health programs being bought by employers, used by consumers, and having successful outcomes, which is great. And investors continue interest in this sector. So next is New York-based medical robotics company ClariPath announced it has secured $36 million in Series D1 funding led by Wardell Ventures. That's a hospital corporate venture fund. They don't usually lead, so it's interesting, and the corporate venture fund is leading here. New investor is Oxford Ventures. The company makes an autonomous AI-enabled robotic tissue sectioning and transfer system to improve pathology lab operations. So very interesting there as well. We don't see a lot of robotics. Healthcare is a great environment for robotics to work because you have extremely expensive professionals, extremely expensive patients, extremely expensive diseases, controlled advanced environments like hospitals. It's a great place to run robots in. So I think we'll see more robotics in a hospital environment. Do you have any thoughts on those stories?
Yeah, I think that it's interesting. If I understand correctly, Northwell is one of the biggest health system in New York. So it's interesting that they are getting into investment, which, as you said, it's not uh, usually happening. And it showed that, like in other places, some organizations are getting out of their swim lane and doing other stuff than what they usually do. So I think that's, for me, it's very interesting that, especially for an entrepreneur like myself, an executive, you might start thinking about when you go to hospital. Usually, you see it as a customer, and suddenly it can be also a funder. So it's a very interesting point of reference for entrepreneur to think about. Everyone can be everyone. It can be a competitor, it can be a funder, it can be a customer, and it's interesting.
And also here, so in pathology and radiology, computer vision AI has had an enormously positive impact over the last 12 plus years. So to give you an idea, you might have a biopsy which is suspected of having cancer, and this might be cut into many slides, all of this done manually using photography. And then a pathologist looks at the slides and looks at 1 or 200 cells per slide, looks at 5 or 10 slides, and they're tired, and they have fatigue, and then they are looking for signs of cancer, and then they write a report. And with computer vision AI, you can take that same biopsy sample, you can cut it into 300 slides. You can look at 1,000 cells per slide, and then you can call out concern. Is this cancer? Is this cancer? And then you can machine write the report better than a physician would write a report. Call out the examples that for another physician's job becomes, and write a recommendation. What we think this is, machine write that. It can be more accurate than a pathologist. And then the pathologist's job becomes to look at the report and agree or disagree. That takes less time.
Yeah, you make the pathologist from the person that doing the job to the reviewer. So it's basically it's doing like it's taking 1/10 of the time. So it's making faster and also more accurate. As you said, there are a lot of papers that show that the vision and the pathology detection, it's way more accurate when you do it with a computer vision. And also it's more a line or streamline between one and each other, because if you go to a pathologist, it depends, are you going to pathologist X or Y? Here, the same software can work theoretically in all the health system. So all of us will receive the same information, and also the AI or the computer can learn from other millions of slides. So it's more accurate and much, much better. So I think that that's a great example of how can you use AI to improve healthcare.
And then in rich countries, the doctor remains in place, and the doctor is responsible. The doctor is paid for being responsible. They're not paid to look at hundreds and hundreds to thousands of cells, except in the reports. So they're not responsible. In poor countries, you may see the doctor removed. There's a primary care physician. There's no pathologist involved.
Yeah.
Everything is automated. This company, ClearPath, the robotics company I mentioned before, it's automating the funnel that goes into this computer vision. It's automating thinking about these samples, sectioning it, etc. So very interesting. So last I'll mention, New York-based Care is a remote patient monitoring and virtual care monitoring platform. They raised $48 million in growth funding from Integrity Growth Partners. CEO there, Andrew Zanilowski. Very interesting. So this is a sector I'm glad to see. So CMS Our community begged CMS to give codes for remote patient monitoring. CMS did provide codes for remote patient monitoring. This led to 2 waves of startups working to set up remote patient monitoring. And it's been a very troubled sector for a number of reasons, but it was commoditized. The codes don't pay enough. It's very hard to get patients at home to take 16 meetings a month, etc. And so this looks like a company that has figured something out. Like it's reached growth stage, it's got a new round of growth funding that shows an investor that at least one company has cracked the code in the investor package. So any more thoughts from our audience of trade journal stories or Gil? Any thoughts on this?
Not for me.
Okay. So I'll get into valuation. So as a whole, stock market indices are at near record highs right now, but digital health stocks are doing terrible. Digital health stocks are down 50% or more, and stacked stocks are down. My guys' category are down more than digital stocks in general. All sorts of things going on here, including a collapse in telehealth. That's public companies, Teladoc and American Well. So and the valuation environment is still a risk-off environment, meaning that investors are not getting credit to risk, but a lot more risk. It's harder if your earnings companies go public or be valued at a high level. The IPO window is closed. We see a couple IPOs, Waystar, among others, but the IPO is closed for all companies, not just for digital companies. We can expect we'll probably see some attempt to open it in September and October. Down rounds are still happening, especially if your last round was in 2020 or 2021 or 2022. We're just beginning to see investor appetites take up now, as I mentioned with that report. I like to follow the SaaS Capital Index, and the most recent value for the SaaS Capital Index is valuing companies at 5.7 times forward revenue. This is reasonable and near historic norms. You saw in the past with small, fast-growing companies valuations of 10 times or 20 times or more than 20 times forward revenue for SaaS companies. But the SaaS Capital Index is public companies. That means they're bigger, not growing as fast. And the median is at 5.7 times forward revenue. And that's down in recent months. The long-term median is 8 times. That's significantly below, about 8 times. It's down compared to just a month ago. It was 5.9 times compared to 5.7 now. So it's down. And there's a couple of things going on here. One is depressed stock market valuations, except for the Magnificent Seven. The Magnificent Seven is NVIDIA and Netflix, and Amazon, and Microsoft, and others. And they benefit very much. They're currently going through an AI boom right now. The companies below them have to do it on an earnings basis and have to do it on an valuation basis. And so that's one reason. Another is, intriguingly, it is investor anxiety about the SaaS business model. The SaaS business model has been an incredible success story for 15 years, succeeding the software publishing business model. But people are very concerned because of the two factors. The first is that the Fortune 1000 is trying to get lean, and when they get lean, they reduce their SaaS subscription. That's the first problem. There's pricing pressure and seat pressure on the SaaS subscription. Second reason is that there's an emerging trend of tiny coding shops using AI to code custom solutions for large enterprises. So in the past, the large enterprises used to get an Oracle database and an industry SaaS solution and pay top dollar for seats, pay $300 a month for a seat for a professional that automates some things they do. Now that same company can go to a tiny software shop and say make software that does a custom version of our favorite productivity software, and that small production shop can do it and sell it in a software publishing model. It costs dramatically less than SaaS. So that there's a threat of that, and it's causing a lot of concern by investors that SaaS companies will see loss of seats and loss of pricing power. So that's part of the reason why this valuation coming out. So that's a session. Any thoughts on valuation levels? Do you track, startup and public company valuation levels?
You're asking me, Steve?
Yeah.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think that what you said here is very valid, and definitely all the, let's say, the Teledoc and American Well, I see them as in a way they are COVID stocks like Peloton and Slack and so on, and they grew too fast, in my opinion. They came at the right time, and the COVID make us adopt them in any way. And then we realize, and maybe we'll discuss it later about longevity, what is important with longevity. We are a social creature, and we want to interact with others. And those solutions are built for isolation. So now we have the correction, and the correction is actually the opposite. We don't want to use those solutions. We want to go and meet with the physician, sit in his office, and let him touch us, and so on. So I think that that's in a way a correction, and I think that the truth is somewhere in between. So there will be a correction back. I don't know how much it will go, but I think that, in my opinion, they are in the bottom, and there is a value of a Peloton and a Teledoc and American Well and so on. So I think that, in my opinion, I might be wrong, but they are in the bottom, and now it will recover a bit.
Great, thanks. Yeah. So next, a fun category we're talking about inflection points in healthcare. So entrepreneurs like to look at at possible future inflection points. Inflection point, that's the vertical part of the sigmoidal curve where people adopt things. And in healthcare, healthcare entrepreneurs track trends and ideally you want to jump on a trend before it hits the inflection point, then you get to enjoy the rocket ship when it goes to the inflection point. So, one that I'm looking at, I think it's most valuable is talking about inflection points when you're pre-inflection point. I'm going to make a call that we are at the inflection point for phone-centric pre-doctor and post-doctor patient engagement visits. So before you have a visit, you get a text or a call from a doctor. Then you might answer a survey from a doctor on your phone. You might be prompted by your phone to press a button, and you're literally in the office. This takes the place of a receptionist, of talking to a receptionist, and receptionist noting that they should be present. And then you have your visit, and then afterwards, there's follow-up also comes to you on your phone. So I think 2 years ago, not a lot of people did this. Now I think it's probably over 10 or 15% of people engage in these ways. I think we're at the inflection points of people engaging with their provider on their phone for real life visits. So that's the one that I'll call out for this call. Gil, are you following any inflection points? Do you want to make any calls that you see were before inflection for a trend, or at inflection or after inflection for a trend?
Yeah, absolutely. I thought about it a bit, and I think that, let's say, for the general AI revolution, like companies like NVIDIA and AMD and others, I think that they are very close to inflection point, if not at the inflection point. I think that a high for healthcare, we are still pretty early. So you mentioned, I know the company that looking at slides and basically decided whether this patient has cancer or not. So that's a good example. But there are only a few examples of that. It's we still have a long way to go. So I think that AI to healthcare is still pretty early, and I think that it's because it's much more complex, much more regulated, and you need to compare to the current solution. While in the tech domain, it's less regulated, so it's much easier to come out with something. I really like the GLP-1. I call it the revolution of basically the weight loss a drug that came from Lilly and Novo Nordisk, and now there are a few other companies that are coming into that. And I think that we just scratched the surface. There are a lot of users that can do that. And I think that now the price is pretty high for the majority of the clients. So it's around $1,000 for per month to use it. And I think that the market is huge. And it's not only weight loss. We see that it's working also. Actually, it was developed for diabetes, but you can see a lot of other indications that can be used. So I think that there is a lot of way to go there. And last but not least, I'm a fan of longevity, so maybe I'm biased, but I think that the longevity revolution is long before inflection point. But there are starting to be a lot of excitement. You see a lot of investment that coming to us. There is a fund that just came a year ago from Saudi Arabia that they're investing more than $1 billion into that. A lot of billionaires are building their own lab and basically recruiting scientists from top universities and paying them $1 million a year just to be in those new institutes that they are building. And I'm not sure that they know exactly what to do with them, but they are recruiting them. So I think that there is a lot of excitement and a lot of a possibility with that, but I think that it's a way before inflection point, maybe 10 years before, but maybe it's the right time to jump in.
The three pegs to longevity itself is pretty long before its inflection point. That's great. So next is kind of a fun part of the show. Is there a piece of technology, an affordable piece of technology in your life that has made your life much better? And so I will call out two here. One is that every Microsoft PC comes with software that is called Microsoft PC Phone Link, and it can develop by Bluetooth a very rich connection to your Android phone, or at least a connection to your smartphone, to your iPhone. So, and I think this is great. It shows you who's calling on your screen instead of just on your PC screen, instead of just on your phone screen. It lets you text using your full keyboard instead of texting using your thumbs on your phone. So this is great. So then also, so integration between your Microsoft PC and your smartphone. And then I also like, for this time, Apple AirTags. So, I put one in my wallet, I put one on the car keys, my earphones naturally have it, and so whenever anything is missing, and this will also go for there's an Android version of these as well, but these are very helpful in just finding something that you've misplaced. So, Gil, any thoughts on this technology that's really helped your life?
Yeah, I just want to add to what you said, that I'm using my Apple Watch to find my phone all the time. So instead of being worried, I'm just beeping it and finding it. So it saves a lot of time. But other technology that, in my opinion, are making my life easier. We discussed the LLM and helping you to write better. So I really like Grammarly, and especially the generative AI that it has, and allow someone like me that is not a native English speaker. But I think that everyone can improve their writing. So I think that a software like that can help you to become a better writer. And I think that now all of us can be a very good writer, which is, I couldn't imagine that can happen a few years ago. And another thing that I really like is a fitness tracker. So we discussed Apple Watch, but also Oura Ring that I showed before, and especially to monitor your sleep and allow you to detect what are the issues that you have with your sleep, and then you can work on it and improve it. And I think that we'll discuss it later, but sleep is super important for you to live better longer. So I really like a solution like Aura, but you also have Whoop and you have Apple Watch, and all of them can help you to detect your sleep and hopefully allow you to live better longer.
That's great. Thank you. That was really great. So now upcoming conferences for our audience, if you have any questions about conferences, feel free to to put them in the chat. We'll address those. Here we're going to mention conferences coming up that could be important and whether we think our audience should go to them and for what reason. So the first I'll mention is that healthcare journalist Heather Landy, who works at Fierce Healthcare, she has just published a list of the year's upcoming healthcare conferences. So that's outstanding. So if you go to Fierce Healthcare, a special report, Heather Landy, ANDI, healthcare conferences to put in your calendar for this year. That's worth browsing. Now, I'll put a link to that in the LinkedIn chat. And then the next I'll mention, I was asked a while back about Young Startup, which puts on venture conferences, is having their New York Venture Summit September 4th to 5th. So I was asked initially, should a digital health CEO go to this if they're in fundraising mode? And my initial reaction was I looked it over and it seemed to be less than 10% healthcare investors. And so I thought, well, healthcare conferences are usually very healthcare specific. They're all healthcare. So why would you go to a conference that is 10% healthcare? And there are healthcare VCs who will be there. But then more recently, I thought, if the September timing, East Coast September timing is important to you, then I would go to this. And what I would keep in mind, though, is that WeWork is full of digital health VCs. We're not listed as attending. They're not listed, in the programming and attending this conference. But you can go for the conference. You can meet the healthcare VCs who are attending the conference who are listed in the programming. But you can also make a list of New York if you're not New York based, if you're outside New York, if you're Boston based, East Coast based. This is basically go to New York in September, and then you can reach out 2 weeks before the event to VCs the VCs in New York, and say, look, I'll be there 2 days or I'll be there 3 days. Let's meet. So I think it is a great excuse to go there meet to New York. It's a great excuse that some VCs will get repeated emails and they'll say, well, I guess I'm in meeting mode. I'll meet people, that week. Maybe I'll even go to a restaurant, a couple blocks away from the conference to meet all the people who are saying let's meet. So there's that. Then there is the Primary Ventures in September. I don't know the dates, but Primary Ventures New York City Summit. So Primary Ventures is a hot New York City venture fund, and about 20% of what it does is digital health. This conference, I keep hearing from top CEOs of companies, top VCs, to say hot conference to go to. They certainly have a who's who list of VCs are attending, not just from Primary, but from many venture funds. So you have to you go to the Primary Ventures Summit site, you have to request an invite. So this is a chance for you to see how much clout you have in the industry. You can request an invite, see if you get one. And I'll mention the DPharm, a Pharma Clinical Research Conference in Philadelphia, September 17th to 18th. This is a great conference for people who sell into pharma clinical budgets. You'll have clinical leaders and people with decision-making authority and budgets there. If you're a software vendor, you go, chance to show off your wares. Expo, walk the Expo booth aisles, arrange meetings with buyers, that sort of thing. So, you have any thoughts on those conferences or any conferences that you're looking to in September that you recommend for our audience?
Yeah, so again, because I'm a fan of longevity and aging, there is a conference actually at the end of this month. It's called Aging Research and Drug Discovery Meeting, called ARDD, and it's in Copenhagen. And in my opinion, it's the best conference for someone that is interested in aging research. A lot of scientists from academia, from pharmaceutical companies, from digital health companies. So I strongly recommend this conference, and actually I will be there. Another one in October is the Health in Vegas, which is supposed to be a very interesting conference. I will also be there. And looking at the audience and who will be there, it sounds like it's very high-level executives and investors, and I think that's pretty big. If I recall correctly, it's more than 6,000 visitors, so it sounds like a very interesting conference to someone that is interested in health.
Yeah, I like health. I recommend that young CEOs or CEOs of young companies raising money go to health. Health will really get a strong representation from digital health VCs. Series A, B, C, across many of the subsectors of digital health. Strong representation. It's an investor conference. And it's actually meant to compete with JP Morgan. It's 3 months before JP Morgan. It's October, not January. JP Morgan is a very odd conference. A lot of people do go there. So good conference to go to, but it's not focused around digital health. There's no programming for digital health people who go there. You set your own agenda of meetings if you go there, but health is a luxury investor conference inside of the Seal Hotel in Las Vegas, and it's a great program. So I like health. So the next personal notices. So this is things we're doing that may be of interest to the audience, and so the next Digital Health Investor Talk show is with Adam Kaufman, the publisher of Bearing on Health. And he has a thesis that providers are winning digital health. So that's our next show, August 14th. And August 15th, Thursday, August 15th, I'm hosting one of my Boston Health Innovation Weeks in Boston at Taylor Continental outside on the water with AstraZeneca's Jennifer Joe, who is talking about how pharma is partnering with digital health companies. And to register for these events, go to stephenwardell.com. And finally, I'm having a digital health beach party. This is at the Birmingham for digital health. This is in Marblehead on Saturday, August 31st. We have a speaker, MIT futurist Manolis Kellis is giving a talk on 10 steps to end disease, and others will have other smart talks there. And so email me if you're interested in applying to go to the beach party on Saturday. It's also the last weekend of beach season as well. So if you get to go to the beach this summer, this is your chance. Gil, do you have any personal notices for the last couple of months?
Yeah, no, I think that what you mentioned here is very exciting, and I'll try to join at least one of them. So I'm looking forward for that.
That's great. Well, so our topic for the show today is, can you live long enough to live forever? Optimal fitness and longevity are an increasingly realistic goal, a lifestyle, and a business opportunity. And so, why don't we just kick off, Gil, with the thesis of the show, which is, can we live long enough to live forever? And are these realistic goals?
Yeah, so I don't think that we can live forever. The longest lived human is a French lady that died a few decades ago, and she lived to 122. And I think that that's more or less the limit. So we can maybe reach to 120. But what we can do is improve our health span. So I want to define the difference between health span and lifespan. So lifespan is how long you live from the moment that you were born to the moment that you die. Health span is how long you stay healthy from the moment that you have been born to the moment that you are starting to be sick. And if you look at the US population, our lifespan is more or less around 80. But in the last 16 years or so, we have one morbidity or a few morbidities that basically decrease the quality of our life. So what I'm trying to do, and that's actually what InsideTracker is trying to help humans to do, is push the line and allow you maybe to live to 80 or maybe 90, but allow you at that age to still ride your bike or go to the beach party with Steve or have fun in the summer, and not have to be in the hospital lying on a bed and connecting to a tube. And I think that that's doable. So we have a lot of things that we can do in order to push our health span and make it as long as possible.
That's great. So what has changed with our lifespan from the beginning of our existence until today, and what do you think will change in the future?
Yeah. So I think that that's a great question. And if we will look back, even let's say a century back or a bit more, the average person lived to the age of 40. So think about that. At least I won't be alive at that time because I'm above that age. And right now, if you look at us, we can live, as I said before, to around 80. So basically, in the last 100 years or so, we almost double our lifespan, and we have done it by improving hygiene, by finding antibiotics, by preventing deaths of newborn, by preventing deaths of moms when they deliver their newborn, by allowing us to have a good treatment to a disease. So all of that, all the, let's say, the normal medicine allow us to increase our lifespan from around 40 years old 100 years ago or so to around 80 now. I think that the next revolution is what I call the personalization and the prevention. So today, if you go to your clinician and tell him, hey, I'm worried that my, let's say, LDL cholesterol is 95, and a year ago it was 90, and 2 years ago it was 85, this clinician will kick you out of the room and tell him, what are you talking about? Normal range for LDL cholesterol is 130, so you're fine, you're normal. But in the prevention world, you can say you have a trend and you are a trending guy. And also maybe for someone in your age and gender, 95 is too high. So let's treat you now in order to prevent you to have a cardiovascular disease in the future. So let's not treat the disease, but prevent the disease. And I think that the prevention and the personalization will most likely will allow us to improve our health span and not only the lifespan.
So, for people on this call, what can they do to live better longer? What are the basics that you know the basics, the easy things that we have the biggest positive impact?
Yeah, so I see five specific intervention or changes that you can do. Maybe some of you are already doing it, but exercise have been shown to be a very good tool to prevent or delay diseases. And basically, you can see that the effect of exercise might be much better than even taking drugs. So an exercise is, you can divide it roughly to two different kinds. You have the strength and you have the endurance, and you can measure them. The endurance you can measure with a marker called VO2 max that show how good is your oxygen capacity. And for strength is basically your muscle, and you can do muscle tone or muscle percentage, and you can do something called a DEXA scan and find what is it. And building both the muscle and also building the aerobic capacity can help you live better even in this age or in the younger age, but also allow you to live better longer later, because if you have a higher VO2 max now, and let's say that you're in your 40s, and you will maintain it, you will get to your 80s and 90s with a VO2 max that is much higher than your peers. And in a way, you will behave like someone in their 60s and 70s, and then you can still ride your bike or pick up your grandchild and have fun with him or her, or go to a trip and enjoy life. And building muscle will allow you to, again, do what you want to do, but also most likely prevent injuries. And if you will fall, and you will less likely break your hip, which is breaking the hip is a very strong sign of a low chance of survival in the next year. And actually, there was some study that showed that people above the age of 65, if they are breaking their hip, they have less than 40% chance to survive for a year. So if you have a muscle tone, and by building the muscle tone, you have a better chance also to have a stronger bones, you're less likely to fall. And second, when you fall, your muscle can protect your hip. And if you break your hip, you are having a better chance to recover from that. So the first one is exercise. Then you have the sleep, and the sleep is somehow is underrated. Sleep allows us to regenerate our body. It's allow us to clean our mind. It's allow us to get ready for the next day. And a lot of us in this age of digital age, we are watching TV, Netflix. We are looking at our computer. We take our smartphone to our bedroom, and we are going to sleep later, and maybe waking up earlier, and we get a text notification, we wake up and we have to test it, to check it, or we are receiving a notification from Instagram or whatever, and we have to wake up and respond to it immediately. And our body need some time out. So getting the right amount of sleep, and going to sleep at the same time, and have the sleep hygiene, and I can mention a few points about that. Don't have your smartphone in the room. Try to make the room in a relatively cold temperature, very dark. Spend enough time in the room, and try to improve your deep sleep and REM sleep. All of that will allow you to be better at the day after, because you will be refreshed. It's also shown that sleep can improve a lot of important blood biomarkers, such as fasting glucose and cortisol, which is a stress hormone, which actually break muscle, and improve testosterone, which is a hormone that build muscle, and a lot of other biomarkers. So sleep is very important and is underrated. Another one is a social life, and we discussed it about when we discuss Teladoc and American Well. It's very important for us to have a social life. We are a social animal, and Steve, all the events that you are making are really working in this direction. We need to interact with people. We need to have fun. We need to spend time with our families, and not only interact with our friends on Facebook, on Instagram, but have a real relationship, and have fun with our family. And there is a lot of data that show that a social life is important. So for all of you, if you want to live better longer, try to have some social life. The next one is nutrition, and nutrition is very important, and it's also very complex. Because if you think about it, we have maybe 8,000 different food items that we can eat, and so it's very complex. Also, we are making more than 200 nutrition decisions in a day. Should I eat that or that? When should I eat it? What is the amount that I should eat? Should I eat it with X or Y? Should I eat it with Steve, or should I eat it alone? So there are a lot of nutrition decisions, and the nutrition allow you to absorb the right calories, but also macronutrients and micronutrients. So it's very important for us to be sure that we have the right amount of B12 in our body, and vitamin D, and some minerals. So nutrition is a super important. It's very hard to find the right way how to eat it, but there are some simple rules that you can follow in order to get a lot of value. So, for example, eating outside relatively is not good, because when you eat in a restaurant, usually the food have high fat, high sodium and potassium, and high sugar. So cooking at home is definitely good, or better than eating outside. Try to eat natural food, so fruit, vegetable, and so on, and less things that are coming in a packet from a factory, because again, they have all of the ingredients that I mentioned before. Also try to not eat too late at night, and it's going back to sleep. If you eat less than 2 hours before sleep, most likely your digestive system will work when you go to sleep, and that will hinder the quality of the sleep that you have. Also about nutrition, I'm not sure that it's real nutrition. Try not to drink alcohol very close to bedtime, and also coffee. So there are a lot of things that you can do about nutrition, and I don't think that we have enough time today to discuss it, but nutrition is very important. And then there are what I call maybe other interventions, supplements and drugs. And I think that you should take them only if you need them. So for example, take vitamin D if you know that your vitamin D is low, or take statin if you are sure that you try to balance your LDL cholesterol or ApoB with a natural intervention. So I think that it's important for us to understand that a lot of us are consuming too many supplements or too many drugs, and everything that you consume can have a side effect, especially a drug and supplements. So be careful, don't consume too much. Try to consume them only if you need them based on looking at your body, either via blood test, or if you have a problem of sleeping, maybe taking magnesium will be good for you. But if you don't, maybe you don't need to take it. Maybe you need to take it if you measure your RBC magnesium, and you will see that your magnesium is low. So try to take those supplement and drug only when you need it.
That's where so you mentioned sleeping and eating, nutrition and exercise and social life, and those are simple and hard. This is not open heart surgery, and so it's I think it's, if someone were to set out to improve this in their life, they would find that it's hard to end old patterns, and it's hard to start positive new patterns. And so that's very, very tricky. And this reminds me, by the way, there was a time in my life where I moved from the suburbs into the city, into a doorman building in the city in Boston, and there was a doorman, and they said, we do all your packages excellently. And I said, oh, that's great. So I can order things from Amazon Prime, and I'll get them. I don't have to go to CVS or something. And they said, we have excellent food delivery here. It was started by restaurants in Boston, and they said, you have dry cleaning delivery here. I said, oh, that's great. I'll choose the dry cleaner who does delivery to the place. And then after that, I read the book, The Blue Zones. You probably have heard of the Blue Zones about longevity. Yeah. And the Blue Zones, one of the things they say is I was reading it, and they say you should deconvenience your life. So if you drive to a nearby supermarket, maybe you should walk to the supermarket and have a rolling cart behind you. And if your mail is delivered to your door, maybe you should get a mailbox and put it at the end of your driveway, 25 yards away from your door. And so you have to go get it. If you don't have a dog, then maybe you should get a dog and walk your dog every day. When you should inconvenience your life and don't have a package delivered by Amazon, but go to Home Depot and buy the product there, so that you get steps in during the day, so that you have interactivities, and you're using your lives, and you're not just sitting around maybe watching screens with terrible posture or something. That was like, oh man, I just paid extra to have all of these conveniences, and now I'm reading in the book that I need to go and deconvenience my life. So,
Steve, I think that's a very good point, and related to exercise, I think that the most important, it's most important in everything in life. You should do what you like. So if you like dancing, go and dance. That's okay. It's more important to do something than to do let's say, the best exercise. If you ask me what is the best exercise for most of us, is go and pump iron and build your muscle and do some aerobic exercise, running or cycling. But doing dance or Zumba or Pilates is better than doing nothing. Walking the dog is better than doing nothing. So I think that everyone, the first rule, in my opinion, is do what you like. The same in job. If you have a job that you don't like, you will do it less efficient than a job that you really like and you think about it all the time. So try to find the exercise that you like, and then do it. And it's definitely better than doing nothing. So always think about what can I do today better than I've done yesterday.
So I want to ask another question about GLP-1s. So GLP-1, people are calling it a miracle drug. It seems to have a powerful direct human. I hope it doesn't have side effects.
Yeah.
Every drug has side effects. Where this drug has been studied for a long time. It doesn't seem to have, horrible side effects. We're still learning. But first GLP-1 was for people who have diabetes. Then later GLP-1 was for people with metabolic syndrome or pre-diabetes. Then later GLP-1 is used by a lot of people for weight loss for cosmetic reasons. But it seems the potentiality seems to go beyond that. So GLP-1s seem to make you not want to eat too much food, but they also seem to make you not want to drink too much alcohol. They also seem to make you not want to smoke marijuana. They also seem to make you, the other ways that they reduce cravings. And so this drug could, is this a longevity drug?
Yeah, absolutely. There is a data that actually I've seen it first time 2 years ago at the ARDD, the Aging Pharma conference that I discussed before. And it's happened in Copenhagen. So the people from Novo Nordisk, which is there, came and present data, and they showed that it's not only allow you to lose weight, but also decrease cardiovascular diseases and diabetes. And now we have data about renal function that is improving, but also they have data that show that it can also increase lifespan. So definitely it is. What is important to remember, and you mentioned it before, there are some known side effects of GLP-1. One of them, which is very important, is you lose muscle. So when you lose weight, the body tend to also lose muscle. So people that are taking the GLP-1 injection, it's very important for them to work on building muscle back, because when you lose weight, you lose fat, but you also lose muscle. So that's one. And another side effect that I heard about it recently, I'm not sure that it's already public, is that people with taking the GLP-1, their resting heart rate is increased by maybe 10 pulse. So let's assume that your resting heart rate, normal resting heart rate is 60, it's increased to 70. And that can be, as you know, increased resting heart, meaning that your heart is working harder, and that might, in the long term, increase the risk of cardiovascular diseases. I think that the benefit of GLP-1 for obese people or people with diabetes or people that have cardiovascular diseases is better than those side effects. But as you said, people that are doing it for cosmetic reason, that they're just trying to lose a couple of pounds or 5 pounds just to look good with their bathing suit in your event at the beach at the end of August, I won't recommend to do it. It's better to do it without that. And also, it's raised the point that it might not be good for a patient or user to be on the GLP-1 forever. So try to be on, and then try to change your behavior and try to maintain your weight without it, because again, you want to lose muscle, you want to increase your resting heart rate, and I'm sure that we in the future we'll see more and more side effects of that. So everyone need to understand, yeah, it's a miracle drug, it's great for a obese population, especially that we know that in the past everyone said, hey, those people with high weight, they are lazy and they are not trying hard and they can do it, but they don't have a strong willpower. And actually that showed that actually there is a medical or biological reason why they are not doing it. So I think that it's also good for their self-esteem. But yeah, I have an issue. It's like a disease, and I have a drug that treats it. But everyone need to understand, everyone that is on a GLP-1 for, I don't know, more than a year, I think that I would recommend you to withdraw from it and try to maintain your weight when you go to your right weight without it, and try to maintain it. If you can, come to it again and I don't know, do it another month or two and then withdraw again. But try to find a way to change your lifestyle to be able at least to maintain your weight without consuming this drug.
Okay, so and for our audience, now is the time to ask any questions about longevity or health span or other issues like that. So I'll ask you a question of something that I think you've studied for most of your life, which is what diagnostic tests should we take and what levels are we looking for? So are we looking to track our cholesterol level? We're looking to track other levels. Probably our weight. Our weight in BMI. We should be tracking that, especially in the blood. What levels should we look at, be aware of, and seek to track, and maybe possibly seek to improve as we age?
Yeah. So it's a great question. I think that start with what you receive from your clinician, but track it over time, because each of us is unique. Our body is a very complex machine, and we need to understand and see what happened in the past and what is the trend. For example, let's talk about fasting glucose or A1C, which is our markers for basically diabetes. It's not only important to see that our glucose is below 100 or our A1C is below 5.7, but also to be sure that what is the trend? Is the trend going up? Is the trend going down? And then if it's going up, try to find some intervention. At the beginning, I will recommend to use natural and simple interventions, so food, supplement, exercise, lifestyle changes to improve it. InsideTracker can support you with that, and if not, as you said, maybe you can use the LLM to provide you some recommendations. And then if it doesn't work, maybe talk with your clinician and ask him or her to provide you a drug to do it. And again, if we are getting back to the prevention, and let's go back maybe for a second for LDL cholesterol or ApoB, our plaque in our arteries is not starting at the moment that our LDL is at 130. It's starting from a very early age. So if you see again that the trend is going up, it's much better to intervene early and try to prevent the plaque from occurring at all than to come and say, oh, it's 130, now I will intervene, because that might be too late, or that might be in a situation that you already have some plaque, and that might hinder your potential to live as long as good as possible. So what I'm saying is, first, track it as early as possible and plot a graph and see what is the trend. Second, if it's too high, or if it's trending high or trending to the wrong direction, find the intervention and try to treat it as early as possible, even if you are inside your normal range. An InsideTracker will develop an optimal range for each person based on your age and gender and ethnicity and athletic activity. So we are trying not only to keep you in the normal range, but also bring you into optimal range, and again, allow you to live a better life.
That's great. So another question is, what is aging? So we go through youth and development, quite extreme development, in the womb, as a toddler child, adolescence, then maturity, and then in theory we could stay at maturity forever. But then aging happens, and we don't stay at maturity forever. So what is aging? I've heard theories that aging is inflammation, or aging is data loss, or aging is telomere shortening, or other things like that. What is aging? And could it be stopped or reversed?
Yes. So aging is a multifaceted process. So everything that you said, but also the fact that we have a lot of our cells that are dividing, and then you increase the oxidative pressure based on the activity of your mitochondria, and you have the inflammation, and you have senescent cells that are cells that stop dividing, but they are starting to secrete sort of a hormone that are a bad hormone, and you are exposed to a lot of toxin in the environment around you. So there are a lot of things that affect your body and make it age. And at the end of the day, if we are thinking what kills us, there are a few, let's say the five highest chance for us to die for are cardiovascular diseases, cancer, metabolic diseases, dementia, and also accidents. So some of us actually, I heard the bad news. My wife's primary care clinician died a few days ago from accident. So we don't only need to be sure that we are keeping ourselves healthy. We also need to be sure that we are not taking a stupid decision, or I'm not sure that's stupid, but take a decision that to make sure that you won't die, not because of disease, but because of accident. There are a lot of accidents. You have car accident. You can take your bike and have a bike accident. You can cross the street and a car can ride on you. You can. We just discussed before about falls, and most of the elderly die from falls at the end of the day. They fall and they break their hip, and it's very hard for them to recover. So there are a lot of reasons that we age, and there are a lot of causes of our deaths. And again, if we are going back of what to do, I discussed it before. There are five things that you can do: are exercise, sleep, social life, nutrition, and other intervention that will hopefully allow you to reach your potential. Now, some of us are more gifted, like the lady that we discussed before that lived until the age of 122. So she most likely had good genes. There is a subpopulation they call centenarian that live above 100, and today it's around 1 in 10,000 that can live above 100. So they are gifted. And some people coming to me and saying, hey, I know this guy that used to smoke all the time, and he lived to 110, and actually spoke with his clinician, and the clinician asked him to stop smoking, and the clinician died before him. So he's gifted. So there are some people that are lucky and gifted, but most of us are not gifted. So if you smoke, most likely you will accumulate lung cancer or COPD or other diseases, and you live shorter. So if you will take care of your body, the most important machine, you have a better chance to push your body and reach the potential of the lifespan that you can have, and also live better and longer and enjoy life.
So you mentioned you could do everything right. You could still have cancer. Cancer is one of the big things that gets us in the end. There's a story from the life of Jacqueline Kennedy, and she was told by her doctor that she had cancer and it was very serious. And apparently, she later flared that when she heard that, she was shocked. And then what she said was, she said, why did I have to do all those sit-ups? And so she was on track to living a long time. And in retrospect, she wishes that she hadn't, if this was her fate, she wishes she hadn't had to work so hard along the way. And I've heard a humorous remark that in Europe, aging is inevitable. Like in America, aging is your fault. It's because you didn't eat a salad. It's because you didn't go for a walk. I wonder which which mentality is better.
But going back to Jacqueline Kennedy, I think that what you raised about cancer is a very important point. And today we don't have our science, unfortunately, haven't made the progress that we made with metabolic diseases, that we are understanding them better and we can prevent them better. But there is a lot of progress with diagnostic. For example, if you will do a colonoscopy every few years based on the guidance from your clinician, you have a very good chance to catch the polyp early and remove them. Or now there are some companies that are doing liquid biopsy that you can look at around 50 different cancer very early and then find them and treat them early. So I think that for cancer today, we have tools to diagnose them early and then maybe intervene. And basically, if you catch it earlier, you have a much better chance to survive them. So I think that even with cancer, which is horrible diseases, we have a lot of new intervention with early detection.
So we have a question from Mira Arias. And in your opinion, is the BMI still a good indicator of overall health, given that it certainly accounts for specific lung type and physique? Is there another more accurate measure or indicators to use and track instead of BMI?
Yeah, it's a great question. So BMI is very good for population because it's very easy to do. You need to know your weight and height, and then you calculate it. And it's good for, I would say, 80% of the time. It's not good for, let's say, a CrossFitter that lift a lot of weight and they have much more muscle. So he might be diagnosed as overweight while he's just having a lot of muscle. But yeah, there are much better tools to look at that. For example, body fat percentage, and there are some scales that have that. Doing a DEXA scan is another good tool, especially to understand what is the amount of the visceral fat that you have, because the visceral fat is the fat around your belly, is the most important indicator for metabolic diseases. So if you have a high amount of visceral fat, it's much worse than having a subcutaneous fat. And definitely the worst one is to have a fatty liver. So I think that if you want to be better, yeah, do a body fat percentage. If you want to be very, very good, go and run a DEXA scan, and it's not too expensive, and find what is your visceral fat and what is the distribution of the fat. You also can find at that test also what is your muscle composition and also bone mineral density, which is very important for all of us, but especially important for postmenopausal women. So I think that, sorry that for the long answer, but BMI is an okay indicator for population. If you want to be better, look at the body fat percentage. If you want to be even better, do DEXA scan and find your visceral fat versus the other kind of fat, and you will have better information.
Great, thank you. Well, I think that's all that we have time for today. Thank you so much for coming on our show, Gil.
Oh, thank you so much, Steve. It was a pleasure.
And you've been listening to Digital Investor Talk with your host, Stephen Wardell, and thanks to our guest, Gil Blander. We'll be publishing the show as an episode of the Digital Investor Talk show podcast. Subscribe on Apple and Spotify, and don't forget to rate us. Our next show is Wednesday, August 14th with Adam Kaufman, publisher of Very On Health, on the topic of providers for winning digital health. Thanks, and see you next time. Bye-bye.